Welcome to the Push It Forward podcast, where truth is not optional. I am your host, Corey Washington, and today we talk about an island that's been used, abused, and colonized under the disguise of freedom, Puerto Rico, the so-called Commonwealth of the United States. Let's tell the truth by any means necessary. I've been to Puerto Rico 4 times, and each visit left a mark on my soul. My first trip, I stayed for a weekend in Old San Juan. I explored the colorful colonial streets, visited the fort multiple times, and soaked in the island's deep history. My first host there was a friend named Eileen. She's around my dad's age, and she treated me just like family. She even helped make it possible for me to visit Vieques, one of the most magical parts of the island. On that first trip, she and a friend took me to eat at restaurant Raíces in Old San Juan, traditional food, powerful ambiance, and full of pride. I went to Vieques during the day, but I didn't make it to see the bioluminescent bay at night. That is something that's still on my list to do. My second trip, I stayed for 2 weeks in San Juan. I hopped on trains to random stops just to walk and absorb the beauty of the island. No agenda, just vibes and love. My third trip was special. I went with my wife Angie. We weren't married at the time, and it was the first time I visited El Yunque. We took lots of photos and videos by the waterfall. That trip, I got to meet her aunt and first cousins. We all spent time together on the beach until nighttime and had a great time connecting. My fourth and most emotional trip was with my wife, our kids, my father-in-law, and my wife's best friend and her kids. We stayed in Rio Grande near El Yunque. During that trip, some of us went ziplining near Orocovis. Later, we had dinner with family my father-in-law had recently reconnected with. The drive up the narrow streets at elevation was interesting, and I was glad I was the one driving. That trip was meaningful in so many ways. Watching our kids experience the island where their mother was born, it hit different. My father-in-law even got to meet some of his long-lost family, siblings he had been separated from as a child. We had bought him a DNA kit the previous Father's Day and used it to help reconnect him with brothers and sisters he didn't know he had. Puerto Rico isn't just a place on a map to me. It's a place I would gladly retire in, or at the very least, own a home so we can return as often as we want. Every trip I noticed something else. Puerto Ricans are deeply spiritual. I witnessed it in their homes, in the mountains, and in how they treat their land. And I'll never forget buying canepas, those seasonal Spanish limes, right off the side of the road. Simple pleasures, pure joy. Puerto Rico isn't just a location, it's an experience. And today, I'm not just telling its history, I'm honoring my connection to the island. Puerto Rico was originally home to the Taíno people, a peaceful spiritual people who fished, farmed, worshipped nature, and lived in harmony with the land. That peace ended in 1493 when Columbus returned on his second voyage and Spain claimed the island. What followed was genocide. The Taíno were enslaved, raped, tortured, and killed. By the late 1500s, over 90% of the Taíno population was gone. But their blood never disappeared. The Spanish colonizers brought enslaved Africans to replace dying indigenous labor force. The first documented arrival was around 1501. Those Africans, stolen from their homelands, were thrust into a brutal environment. At first, the introduction between Africans and Taíno may have been cautious or standoffish, different languages, different worlds. But they quickly realized they shared a common enemy, the Spanish crown. They didn't need words to know they were both being crushed. Over time, they began intermarrying, protecting each other, and forming resistance communities in the mountains. These early Afro-Taíno Maroons became legends, just like the Maroons in Jamaica. They blended spiritual practices, music, food, planting the seeds of what we now call Afro-Caribbean culture. That mix is now what we call Boricuas, from the island's original name, Borikén. Puerto Ricans didn't come from colonizers. They came through colonization, from survival, from struggle, from 3 worlds fused into one soul. Taíno, the first people. Africans, the survivor of change. Spanish, the colonizers. The average DNA breakdown today, 60 to 70% Spanish, 15 to 25% African, and 10 to 20% Taíno. Numbers don't define culture. Power did. People were taught to be proud of Spain, erase their African roots, and forget the Taíno altogether. Puerto Ricans are not a mistake of history. They're the proof of survival. If you want proof that Puerto Rico remembers who she is, you don't need a textbook. You need to walk through Yunque, the only tropical rainforest in the United States National Forest System, sacred to the Taíno, home of Yunque, the Taíno god of creation. El Yunque sheltered escaped Africans and Taíno Maroons. The trees remember the chants, the stones remember the blood, and the wind still carries the truth. In 1898, the U.S. invaded during the Spanish-American War. Spain handed over Puerto Rico. The U.S. didn't liberate, it just replaced one colonizer with another. Puerto Ricans became U.S. citizens in 1917, not out of kindness, but so they could be drafted into World War I. They've died in every war since, yet still can't vote for president. So you can die for America, but you can't vote for her president. That's colonial math. The U.S. didn't liberate Puerto Rico. They looted it. Same script, different island. Just like in Haiti, the U.S. invaded and never left, imposed citizenship, used them in war, controlled their economy, laws, and land. Haiti fought for freedom and was economically strangled. Puerto Rico, they were trapped in a paper cage. In both cases, the U.S. came not to help, but to hold, not to free, but to feed off the land, the labor, and the silence. In 2017, Maria hit. Thousands died. Power failed. Aid delayed. The U.S. responded with paper towels and photo ops. They treated Puerto Rico like a third world country because that's how they see it. Act 60 gave rich outsiders 0% capital gains, low property tax, and long-term tax holidays, but locals don't qualify. The people who built Puerto Rico are being taxed to survive. The people exploiting it are being rewarded to stay. That ain't policy. That is piracy. Locals pay local taxes plus federal payroll taxes, but can't vote for president. Local property tax is 1.03 to 1.9%. Foreigners, less than 0.5%. And when Puerto Ricans receive shipments, they're hit with additional import fees under the Jones Act. Imagine being taxed by an empire that doesn't even let you vote. Governor Pedro Pierluisi makes about $70,000 a year, and by many Puerto Ricans, he is seen as a puppet, because real power sits with the Fiscal Oversight Board, not locals. You can elect a puppet, but if the strings still lead to Washington, what power do you really have? Puerto Ricans have voted for statehood 3 different times, and all 3 times, Congress has ignored them. So they remain not a state, not a sovereign nation, just stuck. How can you ask someone to choose their future when you control the options and hold the door shut? Puerto Rico has been used for military testing, a lab for forced sterilization, and a dumping ground for U.S. debt and corruption. You cannot claim Puerto Rico when it's convenient and abandon it when it's in crisis. That's not patriotism, that's pimping up people. In the middle of the night, when the island breathes, a sound echoes through the trees. The coquí is tiny, but loud, heard for miles, found only in Puerto Rico. It kept singing through colonization, U.S. rule, and hurricanes. The coquí never left, just like the spirit of Puerto Rico. Even Puerto Ricans abroad say they can't sleep without hearing its song. So you can take the flag, you can change the schools, but as long as the coquí sings, the island remembers who it is. Puerto Rico's year-round tropical climate draws in millions. The average temperatures range between 70 to 90 degrees. Lush, humid, and green. Rainy season is from April to November, and hurricane peak is from August to October. In 2024, 6.1 million visitors came. 93% of those were from the U.S., and 63% of those were Puerto Ricans living stateside. People love the beaches, but forget the battles. They sip drinks under palm trees on land that's been crying for justice. Puerto Rico deserves justice, whether that means independence or statehood. It's their right to choose, not ours to control. Until they are free to decide their own future, don't call it a commonwealth. Call it what it is, a colony in 2025. And to my Puerto Rican brothers and sisters, don't forget who you are. You are Taíno. You are African. You are Spanish. This isn't just history to me, it's personal. Every time I step foot on that island, from Vieques to Rio Grande, from the forts of Old San Juan to the sacred waters of Yunque, I felt something real, something spiritual. Puerto Rico didn't just welcome me, it embraced me. My wife was born there. My kids played in the soil of her homeland. We watched my father-in-law reconnect with family he'd never met. We broke bread with strangers who felt like long-lost cousins. We laughed, we explored, we prayed. Puerto Rico is not a tourist destination to me. It's a second home, a piece of my heart, a place I plan to return again, and again, maybe even forever. So I'll keep telling her truth, not out of disrespect, but out of love, because love demands honesty, and Puerto Rico deserves both. I'm Corey Washington, and this is the Push It For It podcast. Share this episode because the truth has to echo louder than the lies.